Hi everyone, welcome back to Adventures in AI. We have Tim Kapp with us here today. He is an expert in the field of artificial intelligence. He will be giving us a little bit of information about predictive analytics, machine learning, and a lot of other great things. Really interesting. Well, Tim, thank you for coming. We're so excited to see you here today. And I know we've been friends and colleagues for a long time, but I'd love to dig into what exactly your company does and how you're involved with artificial intelligence.
Well, I do a lot of things with artificial intelligence. I'm the founding member of the National AI and Cybersecurity, ISAO. It's an organization that helps protect the critical infrastructure of the U.S. Specifically, ours is focused on AI and the cross-section of cybersecurity and AI. I'm an adjunct professor of AI and machine learning at the University of Utah. I love that. I have been helping for the last few years the AI for Good, the UN's program, to find solutions to some of the world's biggest problems. And so we run the Silicon Valley Pitch Contest, where we find smaller companies that are trying to help these sustainable development goals. And we found things from cancer detection to all kinds of solutions, fake news. And I'm proud to say the last 2 years, the U.S. Winner has gone on to take the world. And so we're super excited about that.
That's amazing.
And then I finally do have my own company, Synco AI, and we do a lot of work directly with organizations that are trying to embed AI into the companies they've already got. So
fantastic.
Does some great work there.
So when did you start your new company?
Synco, we started about 5 years ago, right as COVID was starting.
Oh, wow.
But prior to that, I've been doing AI for a number of years. In fact, if you go all the way back, I was kind of a nerd as a kid. I loved robots, I loved science fiction, and so I've been building robots and trying to get them to do things for years. But
no, that's awesome.
So
as your education progressed, what did you go into specifically to kind of help that?
Well, what was interesting, and this is not the path I would recommend today, when I got my college education, AI wasn't really taught in the computer science department. So I started in mathematics and computer science thinking those would be my two majors.
Right.
And what was interesting is I realized really quickly that what I wanted to do wasn't being taught there. And so I got recruited into the economics program. And it turns out econometrics is a fantastic foundation for predictive analytics, which eventually, has kind of migrated and become machine learning, or one form of machine learning. And so that's how my path, that's how I got into it.
Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. And as we were talking a little bit before we started, we wanted to kind of get a little bit of groundwork laid as far as definitions of what's what, because I know for myself, sometimes I confuse artificial intelligence with machine learning, and how does that all fit together?
Yeah. Well, so here's the great news. You're like everyone else. Everyone confuses these, and we mix the language quite a bit. And honestly, the definitions are a little fuzzy. Generally, here's how I talk about it is AI is the broadest thing, and AI could be anytime we try to get a machine to act like a human.
Right.
Now, there's different forms of that. The old forms used to just be rules. We'd write a bunch of rules, and it would follow the rule sheet. Today's AI is far more advanced than that. And so below AI, we kind of then talk about machine learning as a subset of AI.
Okay.
And in machine learning, that's when you take data and you train it, at least in supervised learning. Basically, you're taking data and extracting information, making predictions, doing things from that.
And so the machine is trying to find patterns.
Yes.
And so then learn from those patterns.
Yeah. And then below that, we'll often hear about deep learning, which is deep learning is a specific kind of model where we're trying to get the computer to act a lot like our brain. So we build things that look like neurons. In fact, they're called neural networks. And so deep learning is one level below that, where we're trying to get the machine to actually, it's still machine learning, but it's a different kind of algorithm that's specifically designed to mimic the human brain in a lot of ways.
That's fascinating.
So you'll hear all of these, and honestly, in the news and even when I teach, I accidentally go between all three, and that's okay. Everyone needs to know it's okay.
Right, we're all learning.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, do you use predictive analytics in your company? How do you use AI like on the day-to-day basis with your employees?
So we bring AI into other companies. So we often will build software for them, or we'll build models or help them move data around to build AI capabilities into their products or their companies. The way my company uses it specifically, we do a lot of computer science work. So right now, computer science is just being completely upended by these new computer agentic models that allow us to write a lot of code. So, for example, 2 years ago, we wrote our own code, and we were playing around with these models.
Yeah.
But we didn't let it write our code. It would ask it questions, things like that.
Right.
Today, there are times where I'll go an entire day where I'm just coding back and forth with an agent.
That's amazing.
And it's producing the code, and I'm really focused on what do I want the thing to do? What problem am I solving?
Right.
And I just don't even get into the code anymore. And
That's so crazy.
We've taken our time to prototype has probably changed from, we're probably 8 to 9 times faster in our time to a prototype, and probably, at least double, if not more, in our time to a longer term, larger enterprise application. And we are enabling our entire team with every tool they want.
That's really important.
So, yeah.
I know there's a company that we recently heard they use it 70% of the time, or they're requiring their employees to use it 70% of the time.
Yeah. We're actively telling our developers, stop thinking about yourself as developers and start thinking of yourself as problem solvers and prompt engineers.
I would love to go into the both prompt engineering and also agentic AI. Okay. So maybe elaborate a little on both of those.
Okay. Well, prompt engineering, I think everyone knows, pretty much everyone seems to use ChatGPT now. Right. So prompt engineering isn't anything more than entering prompts like you would in ChatGPT. But as you learn, the more you practice, there's patterns that you find that work really well.
Yeah.
There's certain kinds of prompts. If you have a certain kind of job, you've learned to do something.
Right.
You talk a lot about education. My favorite pattern for education is I use the Feynman method. And I don't know if you know Richard Feynman, a famous physicist, but he has a pattern for how do you learn something.
Okay.
So if I'm trying to learn something, I will regularly go in and I follow this pattern. And I'll do something like, using the Feynman method, I would like to learn how to do whatever it is, algebra.
Okay.
And the Feynman method, it's smart enough to know, okay, the step one is I'm going to assess, figure out what you know. Or I'm going to teach you a few things. And then I'm going to assess and figure out what you know, identify the gaps, and help you then deep dive on the place you have the gaps. And so things like that, when you learn these, and I don't want to call them tricks, but when you learn these patterns, that's really prompt engineering, is learning the patterns that work repeatedly and over and over. And there's some fascinating patterns that we use every day. We could have a whole session on just the patterns. I've got a great one that I really don't like how ChatGPT or other agents spit out research that they do. It's always formulaic and kind of boring, and everyone complains about this.
Right.
Here's one of my favorite patterns. I have a great comedy book on the rules of comedy. It's a short little book, and I know it's a book that was written by someone that does a lot of training for SNL cast
seriously?
members. Is it called Second City? I can't remember the place.
Yeah.
And I'll often I have a standard little thing that says, now add some comedy. I'll have it do research, and I'll say, now add some comedy, follow the rules of this particular book. And it's amazing to see how much more fun it is once you do something like that.
That is really cool.
So simple things like that, it requires practice and learning, but
sure, that's
what prompt engineering really is. Now, there's advanced prompts. People will sell it in big prompt books. I don't use those typically, but I have in my quiver, I have a whole quiver of things that I like to use that I know work like that.
No, that's amazing.
So
I know in our company we do prompt engineering. And so it's to actually help the students identify things and then go and target that specific concept so that they get a little lesson from Albert Einstein or Da Vinci or whomever to be able to understand that specific concept. And so you don't just get a big lesson that you already know 80% of it. you go into
Exactly.
those 20% of your gaps in knowledge.
Yeah.
And so
And
really,
it's changing learning for people that love to learn,
right.
that are curious. It's just fundamentally changing how we do that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And in fact, our company just made a quick little video about how slow classes can be and how bored these students are. And we want to change that. And I can see even with the comedy, I think that's an excellent
I
idea.
applaud your effort. I was that kid that I got great grades and I got kicked out of school a lot. I just had a hard time sitting still.
Yeah,
And I love where education is going today.
yeah.
I think AI is going to be absolutely transformative.
I agree. And we actually had a really cool experience. We did a pilot in the Duval School District, 141 students. We gave them our Quiklearn app, and during the classroom, the teacher actually used it to stagger his teaching. Florida's History Teacher of the Year, so he's just an expert teacher. But he gathered 2 or 3 of the students that were really struggling, and he taught them directly. But the other students, he was able to give them Quiklearn, where it was his character, his voice, and all of his content that's aligned to state standards. And they just soared. It was amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Their state test scores went up 12 points, which was like they'd never seen it. Their usual, increase was 3%, 3 points.
And what do you think causes that? Is it additional engagement? Is it because they can move their own speed? I mean, what?
I think there are a couple of things that you touched on. It's immersive, so we use 3D environments like a video game. So this is what kids are used to, right? And then being able to have a lot of senses targeted, right? You have simulated movement. You have, I think actually and lots of visuals. Agency, I think, is important. But yeah, so these students were so engaged. And then they'd take it home for homework, and they'd say, homework is finally fun. I mean,
Wow.
That's like if you wanted to do one
amazing.
thing. And these were like inner city school kids that really would never have the opportunity to have a tutor come to their home. But here they were on their smartphones instead of just surfing the, TikTok or whatever. They were actually learning and enjoying it. That's our whole goal, right?
That's amazing.
Stoke that fire of learning, enjoying learning. So.
Well, I love hearing it. And one of my favorite things that's happening now is, we enjoy this fantastic educational system. We have lots of resources here. A lot of those resources aren't available around the world. And this is what I've loved about working with AI for Good, is we're trying to take those kinds of systems. In fact, we had a woman on our board that was bringing educational, she was a professional tutor for Ivy League kids,
Schools,
Ivy League schools, yeah. And she realized that, yes, she could still serve and build an incredible business, turning herself into an avatar, basically, and then using AI to support what she was teaching. But then she's going to give that away in third world countries or other areas that obviously can't afford her services, and so she's giving it away in other areas. And
That's awesome.
It's just amazing what we can do. We can bring education, from any part of the world and bring it into another part of the world, or vice versa. We can learn from, my team of developers all work in Madagascar.
Nice.
And all speak French. Now it is no problem for them to take English content and translate it into French, for them to take French content and allow me to see what they're doing.
Right.
And at an educational level, I think it's going to completely disrupt things.
I agree. I mean, basically what we do too, like you're saying, is we take the greatest minds now and then and pull those into large language models. And we even have offline large language models. So we're teaching, I think we have maybe 300,000 people using our Fluent Worlds app to learn English or Spanish. And then, but it's all offline now. And we actually have an AI tutor that's embedded right within the app. So any question that you have, you can go through the regular lesson, but you can also ask the AI tutor, hey, how do you conjugate the verb to be, or whatever it is? And she comes right back, but they're all offline. So you take a country like
Wow.
Africa who has spotty internet, and wow, you're good to go.
It's always fun to feel like you're learning from the original.
Right.
I would love to learn philosophy from Plato and Aristotle, and
Right.
we can't. I mean, we put these books, I mean, you're doing exactly this.
Yes.
Put these books underneath and say, act like Plato. Help me get educated on what you mean.
And you kind of get that personality coming through,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, we trained our Abraham Lincoln character with all of the writings of Abraham Lincoln. So his personality and all of those writings are very accurate, and his, love of freedom and his devotion and these sorts of things really shine through in the lesson.
I love that. In fact, that's one of my favorite prompts is whenever, ethics issues come up a lot in AI, and I like to use, we just spoke about Aristotle. I like to use Aristotle's model of a golden mean, because it kind of tells us bad stuff happens at the extremes of what we do. And so a lot of time it turns out to be a really good model in the modern world of AI to say, let's help me understand the good and the bad, help me understand the ethics of certain things in AI.
Yeah.
And, do we share too much data or too little data? Do we allow too much AI or too little AI? And so I oftentimes will use that prompt. I'll say, just act like Aristotle. Help me understand this problem, but from an ancient perspective. And it's a fascinating conversation to feel like you're speaking to someone that's, that 2,000 years old,
Right.
but discussing a problem like AI.
That's pretty fascinating.
So,
I love
it's a lot
that.
of fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. AI automation is changing industries. What industries are really being impacted, and how are jobs being impacted? And also, we were talking about agentic AI that might fit into this discussion. Give us a little thought on those things.
Well, let's take all three of those. First question is, what industries are being impacted?
Right.
And the answer is everyone. Now, this sounds funny, but I'm getting calls from large industries. We've worked with some of the biggest companies out there, public companies. And I also get calls I got a call from a food truck company saying, how do we optimize our food truck placement? Which is a fantastic question.
Right.
The trash removal business is being disrupted right now. A company, I've seen simple models where a company came out and said, well, let's just put a camera over these industrial trash receptacles, and then we don't have to roll a truck every Monday or twice a week. We'll just roll it when it's full.
That's
And
amazing.
it turns out it saves about half their cost. And so even little industries like that, we're getting calls from. I was on a fantastic call this morning with a coach, a woman who's one of the top volleyball coaches in the nation, saying, how can I use AI to help women that are learning volleyball, and or anyone learning volleyball.
Right.
And we've had people talk to us about psychology and therapy and apps like that. So it's not just the large business applications that we might think of.
Right.
And it's not just predictive analytics. It's touching everything right now, or it's starting to.
Right.
As far as where it's going to kind of touch first, we didn't have a sense of that until probably the last few months. We're seeing things, but we're starting to see a lot of data coming out. Computer science will be the first.
Interesting.
Computer science is going to be, and it's probably because we are all using this on ourselves.
Right.
But it is probably the most disrupted right now. I saw a chart from Indeed.com suggesting that computer science jobs are already falling quickly.
Okay.
We've seen a number of press releases where large companies are coming out and saying something along the lines of, we're no longer going to be hiring, or we won't hire that many new developers. We're going to use the developers we have, and as they attrit, we'll replace with AI. Wow. And we talked earlier about how productive development teams are. If we really can do 50% more, 90% more, that's not a bad strategy.
Right.
What that means for all our jobs is very different. Now, that doesn't mean that all the development jobs are going away, but as I've heard a number of people put it, you're going to have the top developers in their field and they'll be safe.
Right.
And then you'll have a whole bunch of people that if you want to hang out, you can stay there. And if you don't want to be, if you're not going to be the top developer, but you aren't going to get paid as much, salaries are dropping quickly. Or you can become a new kind of developer.
Right. That's exactly what I was just going to say is prompt engineering.
Prompt engineering, and being, another way to put it is if you're the developer that knows how to ask the right question, or we're seeing a lot of models where companies are saying, let's combine what we used to call product managers and developers. So a developer that really understands how to get in the customer's head and can turn around and translate that to an AI, that's useful as well.
Right.
So it's replacing jobs is the wrong way to put it. Supporting what we already do is part of it, but we're going to be completely rethinking how we do jobs.
Refiguring things.
Yeah.
Reconfiguring.
And it'll be interesting because I don't know that everyone has the skills to do it. And that's my biggest worry right now is will we all develop those skills fast enough? And so I have worries. This is what keeps me up at night is what's going to happen, and is it going to, as an economist, I'd be the first one to always tell you, every time there's been a major innovation in human history, we figured it out. It was disruptive at the time, but everyone adjusted and changed.
Right.
This time is a little different because it's never happened this fast. AI, we used to say we're going to be to certain levels by 2030 and then 2040, and it would make these predictions.
Right.
This is the first market I've been in where those predictions are getting shorter every year, not longer.
Like Moore's law.
Like Moore's law. But it's like Moore's law, and every year it's getting shorter and shorter, right. that prediction, and so, or steeper and steeper, I guess, in the case of Moore's law.
Yeah.
And so it's a fascinating thing, and it's going to have a major social impact on us. There's no question.
So, if you were to give some advice to your students at the U of U, what types of subjects should they be studying? What things should they be preparing themselves for? How do they hedge their bets in this new AI world?
Well, it's hard to know, and I'm very honest with them, and I get this question a lot from my students, and honestly from a lot of parents, saying which majors are safe, and the answer is I don't know. I honestly don't know. Computer science is kind of the canary in the coal mine. We built the stuff, and sure enough, we built the tools for us first, and so we're going to get hit hardest and first. But like I said, I'm seeing this for every job. I think it's going to affect therapists. It's going to affect teaching. It's going to affect almost every type of job out there. And so I guess the question is, what is the fundamental skill that's different? That's what I'm trying to ask myself. And I don't know that I have the answer. Here's how I think of things. And this will get us into talking about agentic AI.
Yeah.
It used to be that humans got value by being able to answer questions, would memorize facts, and we could answer questions.
Right.
If you're a doctor that can, look at symptoms and say, I recognize that symptom, I'm going to make
pattern.
this, yes, I'm going to make this correct diagnosis, that's of value.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that's becoming less valuable now. And so in the case, let's give the example of doctors. Already, these models are acting at PhD level, regularly beating PhDs now in their own fields.
Yeah.
As far as retrieval of information. But retrieval of information, I would say, is kind of the lowest level of education.
Right.
The second level is, can you do tasks based on that information? And so that's most of our job. Most of our day, honestly, is tasks.
Yeah.
I answer my email, I respond to email, I write a report, I do whatever.
Right.
And most of our jobs are probably 80% tasks. And then at the top level is process management. And that's the managerial function of saying what tasks should be done, how should they be prioritized, who should do them, that kind of stuff. So traditionally what we thought of managers.
Yeah.
And this is the fascinating thing. So if you think about it, ChatGPT, well, honestly, starting with Google search, ChatGPT can answer questions for us. It has that bottom layer covered.
Right.
Better than we ever will. It's read every book. It's read every article. It knows more stuff than we will.
Right.
And so we said, okay, well, at the middle layer, it can't accomplish all these tasks. Well, then we came up with agentic AI, the first agent-based AI, and we started allowing it to do tasks.
Right.
It can do things like research reports. Before I came over here, I asked it to do a research report, and sure enough, a beautiful 20-page summary of every, the latest trends in a certain field, with references, things that I could look through and say, okay, I want to qualify all of this.
Right.
A beautiful bibliography. It was a better report than I ever would have written or turned in. And the estimate right now is that AI within the next few years can probably do about 70% of our tasks. If it's my email, I am happy. I am beyond happy to have it respond to my email for me. And then we then moved up and said, but what it can't do is processes. It can't coordinate all these activities. It's just not smart enough. Well, that's where multi-agent systems comes in. And multi-agent processes, like what we're seeing in computer science and development,
Sure.
are now taking over. And that's where we kind of flip the script. And so we're starting to see systems where the system, the process, the prioritization is actually coordinated by multi-agent systems. And they're calling other AIs to do work or calling humans to do work. And so we have these human-in-the-loop models, and they can call both. But now they are defining the process as they go. And so in the case of computer science, this is kind of the big breakthrough is, we've seen agentic models where you can say, we define one agent to act like a product manager, write a product requirements document, and then it hands it off to an architect, an AI architect. It says, design the perfect data architecture. And they hand that off to the developer. It says, okay, start outlining the code. And that code is then handed to a testing agent. And so it's just like in a human organization, and they're coordinating with each other. And that's what's changing, is now we're to the point with these agentic systems, we can do processes, we can do tasks, and they can answer questions of the data. And we're just giving them more and more. And so we're going to start seeing major disruption, because I don't know if there's another level up from that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I guess there's the actual skills, right? So if it's something that's skill-based, although you do have robots doing surgery, that happened to me. So we have to be more creative, I guess. Creativity is something that is really important.
There's two areas that are really up for debate right now, and that's what we call, creativity is one of them.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we kind of call it theory of mind. Is can it really understand the point of view of another? Empathy.
Right.
Can they do those two things? And with theory of mind, I've been running a lot of tests on this, and it's shocking how good it is. We kind of thought it'll never have theory of mind. It can't have empathy. And I'm sure in a human sense, it isn't empathy.
Right.
But the question is, what is empathy? Is it from the beholder's point of view, the person receiving empathy? Because if it's from the point of view of someone, say, receiving therapy,
right,
the tests show that the person receiving the therapy feels that it has as much empathy as a human does. Yeah,
it's a little scary to think about, really.
And creativity, is that's a question I have. Is I come from a family of artists and musicians, as we've talked about, and I'll have to show you. Maybe we'll see how good this is, but you think of something like songwriting as creative,
right? And
so we were just goofing around, and this is not going to be very good, but here's a system that I love to use to play around with. Mm-hmm. And when I came over here, I said, I had it write a song.
Wow.
And so I put in, here's my prompt. Wasn't a very good prompt. I put it in very quickly. Write a driving rock intro for a podcast called Edventures in AI about the intersection of AI and education, hosted by Dr. Linda Bradford.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I'm going to warn you, I have not heard this song before.
Okay.
I am using a beta copy that says it may accidentally have explicit lyrics. I don't think so.
Okay, well, we'll cross our fingers.
Okay. So I had it, again, we were talking about creativity, and the question is, what is creativity? Is writing a song creativity? Because it can write songs.
Yes.
So given a very difficult topic, here's what it wrote about an intro for a podcast.
Tune in with Dr. Linda Bradford on the Edventures podcast. Hey, we're on an AI ride. It's a wild world out there. Adventures in
So
That's really
and
fun.
it can do all different styles, and so that's the big question. Is that creativity, or is it just piecing together? It's not stealing other pieces. It certainly learned from other pieces. But what's that Pablo Picasso quote? Good artists copy, great artists steal, is I think is
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
something like that.
Right.
You know, my father, again, who's an artist, used to say, I watch the artistic and musical creative process in my home constantly.
Right.
And I watch that, artists don't copy each other, but certainly they're influenced by each other.
Oh, absolutely. Every new art wave took from the previous and added to it,
Yeah.
and these sorts of things.
And that's what we've always done as humans. We take the work we've learned, the things that we've done, these amazing works, and we build on them. We
Exactly.
change and alter. And the question is that what this is doing, or is this something different?
I actually did my dissertation. The main point of it was creativity, and how actually virtual worlds intersect with creativity and these sorts of things. And we found that the students that were taught in our virtual worlds, when they took the Torrance test of creativity, they actually excelled beyond the students that were in the typical classroom. So it's interesting, but yeah, creativity is really a very multifaceted topic.
Well, and we talk about intelligence, how intelligent are these things?
Right.
And there's just fascinating studies. I think there was a big debate in the 90s about what is intelligence. And the answer was, we didn't know. Everyone had, it was a big debate because no one could define exactly what we meant by intelligence.
Right.
And I think the end result has kind of been, now we talk about different kinds of intelligence, emotional intelligence, IQ, and they're all different.
Right.
And, AI performs at different levels on each of those kinds of intelligence.
Right.
And so I will tell you, it performs shockingly well at most of them. I think people are very surprised in general when they see how good it is at emotional intelligence, for example, at least the perception of what it plays back to you. It's very good at telling you what you want to hear. We know it's really good at predicting how a human is going to respond to certain things. So marketing copy and things like that, recent tests I've seen is it's actually better than a human at predicting how a human is going to respond to a certain piece of text or art or something.
And that's your predictive analytics that play a part there.
Yeah. It just has so much data and knowledge it can
Assimilate into
it can
one.
assimilate
Right.
in ways that we just weren't designed to do. Now, then the question is, well, what were we designed to do? Well, we're really good at social interaction. And so in my mind, there's some things that are just fundamentally human that it may or may not ever be able to do. But we're still figuring that out. I don't claim that I know the answer to which it can and can't do.
Right.
So,
Well, this has been such an interesting discussion. I've really enjoyed hearing all about what you're doing, and you are truly an expert in your field. And I think that's what we want to do on this podcast. We really want to bring people that are experts, and that are really interesting experts, which is what you are. So.
well, I don't know if interesting, just excited. This is a fun topic, and I appreciate you inviting me on.
Well, it's our pleasure, and we're excited for the future, and we'll have to keep maybe brainstorming of what is it that we're going to be doing as humans.
That's the big question right now. I'm excited to learn that myself.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you again, Tim. Thanks for coming.
Thank
it's
you.
great to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
And always, everyone, as we sign off, remember, be humble, work hard, and always be kind. Thank you.